Calling this meeting of the Meet and Confer to order. The first item on the agenda is approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. I'll give everybody an opportunity to review if you need to, or if you have reviewed, I'll ask for a motion. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, it is approved unanimously, I believe. I think I heard unanimously on the video as well. Okay.
You did.
So we'll move on to item number 3, discussion and possible action of the following items. A, alternative processes for hiring non-commissioned officers. B, pay and benefit proposals and counter proposals. And C, extending the current agreement for 1 year. We'll start with alternative processes for hiring non-commissioned officers.
Okay. We have a rough draft of something that we'd kind of like to have Bill take a look at. One of the things that we are finding is that right now we have trouble getting people to show up to tests for whatever reason, maybe work schedules, conflicts, something like that. Right now, my 2 team members are up in the panhandle of Texas, and they're on a recruiting drive for lateral officers. What we'd like to be able to do is kind of modify our hiring process for non-certified applicants to make it to where we would be able to show up to job fairs and things like that and actually do testing on site as we find applicants. And what we have here is just kind of like I say, a rough draft. We kind of wanted to get y'all's thoughts on this, and we think it could be beneficial if we're constantly filling our pipeline with applicants between academies. Right now we have 2 people that we've hired, but that's not enough to run an academy. So we did a test yesterday. We have to wait for those applicants to get through the process, and we think with something like this, we could constantly be recruiting and filling the applicant pipeline between academies. We got with Christine last week. As far as testing, we would not necessarily want the formal test that we do now, but she does have other tests that we could assess an applicant's reading and writing capability, and that would be a pass-fail type of situation for us, where if they can read and write and pass the test, then yes, we would like you to apply. And then if we could get this implemented, right now we don't have any academies. I think our next academy is slated to start sometime next year while we're doing this. But we would eventually like to convert the way we do department seniority for these non-certified applicants to be academic-based, because the academy is roughly 29 to 30 weeks of academics, physical fitness assessments, and stuff like that. And since we already have a merit-based, education-based pay system in place from our last meeting confer agreement, we'd like to instill in our academy cadets at an early age that academics is going to play a key role in your future with the San Angelo Police Department. So we'd like to make it an academic-based seniority test where at the end of the academy, we average their academy scores, and that's how they determine who the senior person is. Right now, we're kind of in a transition where we actually have active tests And so we do technically have a seniority score on 2 of the people we've hired, and then these upcoming applicants that are tested. But eventually, we'd like to transition to this type of seniority. So kind of looking for thoughts and opinions of maybe what y'all's idea would be for this.
Teresa, do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, my thoughts are that this is the kind of change this process is kind of created to do. I do think that Christine and I, and probably somebody from you, need to sit down and see what effect that would have on other aspects of the civil service rules, which of course we can override. I think we just need to know what those impacts are, as well as if the agreement ever goes away, what's going to happen at that point regarding seniority and all of those things. I'm assuming it would just continue under the basis that it was created, but I do think this is one of those topics that a subcommittee to kind of make sure we're all on the same page and review the rules in a very tedious manner that we probably don't want to do at this table is probably necessary.
Okay.
So we can schedule a subcommittee meeting
Sure.
then? Okay. Is that good for that item? Anybody else? I mean, I would just add that, I think I said it last time, that creativity and how we recruit, I think we're all on board for. It's just trying to find, what the best avenue to do that is. So we're definitely in support of a creative process for that. So, okay, on
So
to,
who on your team wants to be on the subcommittee?
I'll be on the subcommittee. Kelsey or John, one of y'all want to do this? Kelsey, it would affect you probably more because it's your recruiter.
Yes, I'll be on the subcommittee as well.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
all right. All right, so moving on to item 3B, pay and benefit proposals and counter proposals.
I didn't think about this. We have slides to show. How are we going to handle that?
I think Brian's working on it.
Oh, okay.
Does anyone have the slide? Okay, Brian has it.
Whatever it takes to make it go.
Do you want her to go into it, or do you want to?
Sure, you
I'll
can
just-
start if you
I'll
want.
go through
You
the
bet.
numbers. This first column, the PD request, is the numbers that y'all provided us at the last meeting. We used your annual numbers rather than the 3/4 of a year. We have to implement this on an annual basis. So we went ahead and used all of the numbers that you provided on an annual basis as well. We plugged your proposal into our system and calculated some numbers, went back and forth with Jeremy a few times. I think we came pretty close to everything. We did make a couple updates that you requested. So these are the final numbers. The salaries and overtime I combined into one line to be 1.3. That does not include the chiefs. We netted that out. And then the conversion of training pay, we were showing one less budgeted training officer than you had thought we were budgeting for. The night differential, we were going to do that, and correct me, Jeremy, if I misstate this, but $1 an hour, and since that would systematically be very difficult, we would do an ad pay for a night differential. Your proposal came out to about $86 a paycheck. I rounded that to $85 a paycheck over 24 pay periods. With benefits, that comes out to $191,000. Drone pay, we were right on where you were at $62.81 with benefits. And then on-call response is our biggest difference, and that is largely due to the number of hours that we were projecting, and then at the overtime rate. Actually, in this case, on-call response would be the double time rate. So for a total cost, y'all were proposing 1.5, we're showing 1.626311. Equating that to an 8% increase on a recruit officer, that would utilize 10 officers.
So, yeah, so nobody's advocating that we would freeze 10 vacancies, but that would be the cost of that when it's converted to a full 12 months. And, I mean, the calculations, I think, man, we're right on. I mean, we're within 5% of those calculations, but, yeah, that's just showing the utilization of the amount of vacant positions that it would take to fund that. Nobody is advocating for 10 positions. I want to make that clear. We're ready to move on to the next slide.
It's up to you guys. Or do you have any questions on this?
First slide.
Do you have any questions?
We would need just a chance to just double check our numbers on that, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I see where they're getting,
Okay,
for the most part. Yeah, we're not far
okay.
on that.
That's pretty close.
Right. I would say a large portion of the differences is that change of benefit rate that you wouldn't have had.
Yeah.
That's something that we're implementing in FY '25, so those are new numbers.
Okay.
Yeah, we can,
Okay.
So let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. As I mentioned, because obviously no one is advocating for the 10%, for the 10 vacant positions to be frozen. So we looked at what we could do. We know that the biggest bang for the buck, from talking to you guys, from talking to Chief during the course of the week, the most important thing is adjusting the salaries. So we left that. Obviously, the training pay, that's actually a benefit to change that. So leaving that in there and leaving the drone in there on the right side, we could get to 7% with freezing 5 positions. I did talk to Chief. I think he is open to 5, but definitely no more, as long as we're all agreed on what we can do. So at that point, I'll just kind of take y'all's thoughts on that.
Let's make sure, let's give him a chance to.
Chief, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so it's always a tough spot when you're talking about going backwards in some ways, but we really believe that following the lead here of the association, that the priority is taking care of the people that we have. And I think that if we can get a decent increase now, we'll retain those folks, because recruiting is a real booger in law enforcement right now. It's the lowest I've ever seen in my 20 plus years, and so I think that as we move forward, it's just we got to be careful that we can get those back. I think we have some overage. I'm still, I know I'm not negotiating, but as I'm standing here as a public, the funds from the water department in regards to funding the lake division could still be increased, and might could level some of that out. I just want to make sure we're using all resources before we start cutting that, but I do believe the priority has to be the people.
So again, it's not our desire to certainly to cut officers. This is, we're just kind of following y'all's lead as far as what you presented and trying to get as close as we can there. So this would be freezing, like I said, the five positions. as funding becomes available, that could be staggered back in over time. But this, in this part of the agreement, obviously, there's no, it won't speak to how those will be eventually funded back in.
Some of the key elements associated with your proposal included deferring the raises until January 1st. The 7% raise that's on the board is for a full fiscal year and would be implemented October 1st.
So over the course of that fiscal year, it would actually be more than the 8%, would be over 9 months.
The concept of freezing positions, vacancies, temporarily to achieve a different objective, another objective is used regularly. Brian's been through that when he was at the airport. They froze a position and restored it when the contract revenue came back up. We're utilizing that in other departments now, so that's not a foreign concept. The difficulty here is that the future funding necessary to restore the positions is not assured. But what is assured is that the people we have on staff now could receive raises from that.
And I would double down on Chief's words, from an HR perspective, and maintaining a workforce at an acceptable level. It's not just recruiting, but it's retention, and retention is huge when you've got institutional knowledge that you need to be able to pass on to other new recruits. So we do understand that the retention is just as important as the recruitment, almost, maybe even more important than the recruitment.
So if it would be okay, I'd like to caucus with
Absolutely.
people real quick. I'll go ahead and sign this for the.
Absolutely. So we'll call for a break at 8:48 for a caucus. To order at 9:23. We are still on item 3B. Noel, did you have an update?
Yes, I'm going to let Sergeant Kennedy, we do have a counter proposal with around the same numbers, so I'm going to let him go with that.
So there's a little bit of difference in the numbers, and I think that's just based on our calculations and when the numbers are pulled and that sort of thing. What we're looking at is doing a 7%, including the ad pays back in, but delaying the implementation until January 1 for everything, which, based on my calculations, puts this year's cost at $1,022,000. My calculation was there was about $766,000 for 4.5%, which is what I guess has been allocated by council, or at least talked about, which would give us a difference of $256,000 this year, which we calculate to be about 2.7 officers this year. The total year cost would be 1.36, which would be 6.3 officers total. If there was, by October 1 of 2025, there was no additional funding put towards it to unfreeze the positions. In doing so, we also changed the night differential. Instead of being $85 a paycheck or $170 a month, it would fall in line with the other stipends that we have and the other stipends that we're asking for, and be $100 a month. And so it'd be it'd be $70 a month savings per position. And that gets that number about 40% lower than the initial cost of it.
Well, I think we're going to want our folks to run those numbers. I think one of the challenges we face is that as we reviewed your initial proposal, we were told that creating an obligation in the new fiscal year, the next fiscal year, is a no-go. So squeezing 12 months worth of revenue into 9 months worth of pay increase is not something that we're authorized to accept or communicate is acceptable. And so that's why our proposal, we're going to have to count 12 months, and so we wanted to pay you 12 months. That's why we were trying to get it done so that we could begin that change 10/1. But that does create, while it's the same total dollars, it does create a lower percentage increase. And like, I think one of the key principles that we were given is here are the dollars, allocate them in a way that makes sense. And so pushing them around into ad pays or whatever, we're absolutely open to. But creating that $200,000 or $300,000 unfunded item in the next fiscal year is, we've been told, a no-go.
Now, we could certainly run the numbers with your new proposal for the shift differential and see what percentage it would yield. But it would, obviously, it's not going to come to 7 or 8%. I don't know if we can do that while we're here, or if we have any desire to do that while we're here, but.
I'd like to get as close as we can to the extent that.
Okay. Yeah. I'm not doing that calculation, so I have to ask. So.
I have to take my shoes off. I'm getting numbers that big.
You know, one of the things that I've tried to be upfront with as far as the funding sources is the dollar amounts from each individual thing. I'm not sure how the difference that you're looking at already is 5 officers, or the 5.1. I don't know how much funding you're calculating per officer, and then how much actual dollar amounts already been allocated by council either.
Think we can get you that answer.
The dollar amount for an officer before a raise would be $81,643. And then as we give a raise, we do increase that amount based on that percentage. The amount that is being, make sure I grab the right column. Allocated per council is 766,391.
Do we need time do we need to break again for? Okay. Then at this time, we'll call this.
Hang on a second, Brian. Is there anything else you'd like her to go through while we're together before you caucus?
Give me just one second.
You want her to go through
Yeah, because we might need
anything
those
else?
numbers.
No, I think we're good.
If you get over there and run into a roadblock or something,
Okay.
need another piece, give us a holler.
Okay. I think
They want to stay with the city. Time, we'll call recess at 9:31 for a caucus. We're going to call this meeting back to order. We're still on item 3B.
go ahead.
Going further through the numbers and with the direction that y'all have gotten, we took a look at the numbers and how that could be, you know, what different things can go in or come out, and different pay rates. And our proposal would be to have the 7%. The training pay is a net positive for the budget, at least. To leave out night differential, to have drone and on-call response included. Since the number without on-call response, with the number of officers would be 5.12. Obviously, you have 0.12, you've got to account for the other 0.89 or 88. And so by leaving on-call response in, the number would be 5.89 instead of 5.12 officers, is what we had calculated.
Well, the chief will not support over 5, so I think we have to be at an impasse there. Because, I mean, even if that was to go all the way to council's gonna say, Chief, do you support this? And if he goes, no, I can't.
But what's the difference on his end of 5.12 versus 5.89? It's still 6. Because you can't have 0.88 as an officer.
I think we would find a way to trim that 1-2 down so that you are only freezing 5 vacancies.
Now, we did look at, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, we did look at leaving in the night differential as you modified it, doing the freezing the 5 vacancies, leaving the drone, I believe, and the, what was the other one? Off the top of my head, I'm missing it. The training pay. And we were able to squeeze it to 6.25, leaving that in there. So it's not quite 7, but, I mean, you know, and that's maximizing every penny, 6.25, leaving the other ones except for the on-call response.
I guess just part of where we're at is, based on the fact that there'll be, even at 7%, there'll be almost 100,000 in savings, or 100,000 of that 1.19, is gonna be raises to people who don't exist.
I mean, I think the goal is to get recruitments up and try to get them to where they do. But when you
It is-
budget, you've got a budget for every open position.
You're right, that is always a challenge. We're holding a place for somebody that we don't know yet, we don't know who they are. That is always a challenge.
And that might be where the 6.25 makes more sense, because you do go ahead and affect the night shift differential for the folks that are working that. So I don't, caucus again?
Just give me a minute, you know.
Oh, no, you're good. Okay, it's 10:07, and we are going to call this recess for caucusing.
Heads up on your way in.
I think that went on. Okay. All right, so we're going to call this meeting back to order at 10:52. We're still on item 3B. Do y'all have an update for us?
So basically, I think where we are, and I mean, we're close. The two most important things to us, I think, right now would definitely be just the salary in general and the on-call response pay. So if it's my understanding, and I'll defer to a math guy here, but if we kept it at 7%, and we would be short $83,000 on the on-call response pay with the 5.12. We know, and I mean, this hasn't played part of this, but we do know that we have saved $400,000 in contract costs with Axon because we got them to knock another $400,000 off, and we got another 1.2 knocked off our radio system. So we're kind of asking to get the 83,000 to fund that and stick with the 7. And so that's kind of where we are. And I mean, there's a couple ways to do that. We know one of them is if the chief would agree to give up a 6th position. So I don't know. I think the chief is going to call or come back over here after his meeting, but I don't know. So. I'm not sure. I can text him. I don't know what meeting he was in.
Should we,
If you called him, he
Thank
would
you.
answer. I know that. If I call him, he would probably answer. Now, I don't know if that would be protocol, but technically that's his position, so I think,
He would have to be visible, and
yeah,
we would need him visible on screen to have him participate in this meeting.
okay. Let me see. He would have to call in here. Okay.
or I'm not sure what the rules would say, but I'd be open for recess and reconvene, after lunch or something when he's available. I don't know what your schedules look like, but
works well.
Let
I have
me,
the assessment center.
There's
he-
assessment centers.
he's been a key piece of the progress we've made so far, and if he is key to this final step, then I'm open to, a recess for lunch and then reconvene.
I think if we recess, we can, okay, I think we can, we'll need to recess again real quick for our caucus. And I hate to do that again, but, if y'all just give us just a few minutes. It's, 10:55. I'm gonna call this, recess.
And y'all can, in your caucus, he's city management, y'all can have a conversation with him.
Call this meeting back at 11:07. Seems that Chief is open to considering it, so I think that we could move forward today, possibly with a tentative agreement on that. I think there is one concern that we would have to make sure with the on-call response pay that we're not going to go over that allocated dollar amount, or we might have to limit it at some point. Yeah.
So working with Kimberly, that was one of the things that our numbers were so far apart on.
Yeah.
And she ran a number over the last, I think, 3 years. It was very consistent, like kind of eerily consistent, as far as the number of hours that were averaged, being that 2404, I think was the the number. It was, when she sent me the numbers, it was like right at 2,400.
Yeah, and so I think we just need to kind of spell that out in the exhibit that, I mean, we're gonna need some sort of, you know what I mean, like, we can only spend that amount of money, so,
Justified,
yeah.
And so internally, how on-call response would work, we have, if you are any position and you get a on-call, we track it via our pink overtime slips. We put call out on the top, and then you justify the call out with the case number and what you did on the call out. So it is highly monitored by our supervisors, and then I guess eventually it gets to the chief's desk. That would not be hard for us to track that, to make sure we're not abusing that or.
So you are good with the cap. I think that's the concern we have, is just to make sure we don't spend more money than we can allocate.
I think it's one of those where, I don't know.
We can't predict emergencies would
Right.
be the only.
Well,
Yeah.
and we could look at it at 6 months where we track, and we could, you know what I mean, like we can, and we can create a plan from there. I think that's the,
Yeah, because I don't know how you would put that into words of, you know, after a certain number of hours or a certain dollar amounts reached, then it goes to,
regular overtime.
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't,
Well, and so I think what we can do is we could recess real quick, have a subcommittee here at the table, develop that appendix or that exhibit. And then we can call it right back to order and
Okay.
get ready to, so if you are good with that, then
Yeah.
I'll call,
Wait, we also, I think, need a little more information from you guys when we're talking about drone operators, who all that would entail, how that's defined, and then training officer pay. I think you had some
So,
questions on that as
Yeah.
well.
Drone operators, there's currently 3 people, including myself. We've had up to 4. Right now, we're kind of in a standby wait and see mode because our chief is restructuring our department and the way things are working with the drone program. One of those being is my hours are changing to where I will be working more primetime drone call out to where it would not cost overtime to the city or the department I would be working. We don't have a cap on how many drone operators we've had, but due to the amount of flying that we do, it doesn't make sense to exceed 4 pilots because at that point you are, certain people are not getting the flight experience or the time that they need. So I don't see us going over 4, but that would be something that the chief would may develop into something different at some point. Also, I mean, for the sake of appearances, I like asking on behalf of the people that I work with about the stipend, but I would be just as good not receiving the stipend, for appearance sake as president. But I have people that have been working hard since 2019 that have done it for no really extra cost. So I don't feel $100 is really at the hand on a stipend on that.
okay.
when we put it together, or when I put it together, I had it capped at 4. That's
capping it for?
I think we could probably cap it for 4 for this year. I mean, we're
We're going to be opening negotiations pretty
Right.
soon again anyway. Okay, so let's, then, are we good? You got another?
Kim, did you have any other questions on training officers? No? Okay.
There is one thing on the training officers. I know that the budget, there was 12 budgeted and 5 supervisors budgeted under the current system. I went back and watched the council meeting. I mean, there is 13 authorized by council and 6 supervisors authorized by council. So I'm not sure why that wouldn't be budgeted. That's where I was originally getting some of that salary savings. But under the new proposal, we had proposed 12 training
So-
officers.
How those are assigned, is it one training officer per graduate?
So when an officer graduates, they go through the PTO process. There's A, B, C, and D phase with a midterm and a final eval. For A and B, each phase is 3 weeks. There's an orientation week where they kind of ride along with an officer for that first week. Then there's 3 weeks of A phase and B phase each. So they're with that first officer for 7 weeks. They go to a midterm eval for a week, which is going to be a completely different officer. Then they go to C and D with another officer for a total of 6 weeks. And then they ride with somebody for their final eval for a week, which is a fourth officer, or could, under different models, the previous FTO model and a lot of other models, that final week is with the person they were originally with, so they can judge kind of improvement.
And with laterals, the chief and the actual PTO coordinator are actually able to kind of adjust that, because you may get a really good officer that all he needs to learn, because we're plug and play by the state. Like this, my license is good to operate anywhere I get hired, so maybe just our policies are a little different. So we may get an officer that has a lot of experience. He gets through our policies real well, and we can waive. The chief has the ability to, like, we're not going to keep this guy on full training. But on the other hand, we've had officers in the past that are new that maybe need 2 or 3 additional weeks of training. It's not been the most efficient program the past few years because of our academy numbers. We've had lower academy numbers, but yet we've been paying training officers for when we have 3 people in the academy. So it's.
Well, the reason I ask is the chief wants to rehire to fill the vacant positions, not the ones we've been talking about, but and so would a large class be affected or limited in some way by a cap on the number of PTOs? Does that need to fluctuate based on the class size, or?
It could affect it, but the way we envision this plan was, because it's happened in the past, this year it's happened. We had a shift where both of our PTOs, for whatever reason, there was medical emergencies, family emergencies, they were not available. And we had to tap in an officer to train an individual. With the way we're proposing this, theoretically, if a certified PTO was not available that day, we think the officer should get that $50 for that day, even though he's not a certified PTO, because he's taking on responsibilities just for that day. So it would not, just because he's not a PTO, we're okay with the number of PTOs. I think it's just.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to get an academy class over 12.
Yes.
At the same, I mean, it'd have to be all in the same hiring process to go over what we've capped. I don't know that we've had an academy class over 12 in 5 or 6 years.
When I got with Christine, she went back all the way to, I think, 2017, and we have not yet found a year that we were fully staffed. I'm thinking the last time the department on the books was probably fully staffed. We had less people authorized was probably the 90s, so I don't know.
But I think on the PTO aspect, the less people that we hire or train under this versus the other, the more salary you see saved, because you're not paying people to not train people, or you're not paying them significantly as much. I'm not sure how many, because PTO it's a class that you have to attend to be certified as one. And I'm not sure how many certified ones we have with all the turnover and the promotions and all the different moving parts there. I'm not sure how many we have right now. I know we have, we also have more or less people that are backups, or maybe they were a PTO and they're certified in it, but they just don't want to train people anymore. But if we need them in a pinch because two of the trainers are hurt or something. And so I think we have probably enough that, that $100 stipend goes to 12. And if for some strange reason we have 14, you start using those people that maybe they don't want to train all the time, but you go, hey, we need you to train, and you're going to receive that $50.
I think we're okay with a hard number.
Yeah,
Like
I
if
think
you
we're
just,
okay with
yeah,
12.
I guess we're dancing around the topic, but we're okay with, if the chief wants 12, I mean, I think that's more than enough.
And I think our prerogative is, if the chief has some sort of criteria for those people, obviously we want them to all be certified. But if he's,
Restructuring.
if he's restructuring, and if he decides, this guy did something dumb, or I don't like the way he's doing business, and I don't want him to be a PTO, if he wants to take the whole class or the whole group of training officers that we have now and make everybody reapply, that's kind of up to him as our prerogative. We just want that that whole system to kind of shift to be more in line with the rest of the stipend pays and things like that, but to also recognize that those people that are actually doing the training, that is a hard daily job to account for too.
So our plan moving forward today is just to modify this Appendix I to include the new numbers, to add the new ad pays, to change the longevity per year service to 25-year max, and to put some definitions or caps on some of these things. So we have about 40 minutes before noon if we can.
Okay.
I'm confident we can get that done.
So let's recess for this subcommittee, and we'll call back to order here in a second when we can get this hammered out. 11:36, and we're calling this meeting back to order. Still on item 3B, I believe we have worked out Appendix I, Exhibit A in subcommittee, and we're ready to put that into the tentative agreement. I guess we'll take a motion on that tentative agreement, right? We need to do that?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second, I guess. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, unanimous. For the minutes record, you might note that John Bellini and Kelsey Hernandez left the meeting.
You want to go ahead and sign?
Yes.
Okay, while you guys are signing, the only other thing on the agenda today is extending the duration of the agreement. I've drafted a TA on this that would extend it, that this new agreement would commence on October 1, 2024, since it looks like we're on track for that, but it would continue in effect until December 31st, 2025, so that we would be allowed to negotiate beyond budget if we needed to. So if everybody's agreeable to that, I can print this TA as well, and
No, I just wanted you to see it.
What was the purpose of it being wanted in here?
so that we don't lose an agreement because we're in dispute over a budget item like we did in 2017. So it would give us the opportunity to do what we did last year, to continue discussions and then back pay to October 1 if we needed to. So if everybody's okay with that, yeah.
How about we put, it's good through December 31st unless
Extended.
superseded by another contract?
Yeah, it'll say it shall commence October 1st, 2024 and continue in effect until December 31st, 2025 unless extended by written mutual agreement.
Or unless we get a contract before
Or-
December 31st.
Because this one,
We always have the opportunity to terminate.
Yeah.
And create a new contract.
Or
So we're good?
replaced by a
We'll
new
get,
contract.
I'll get you a copy of that.
We're superseding last year's contract.
We are,
With this
yeah.
one. Yeah.
So extended by mutual agreement or superseded by new contract?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, we're getting Brian some exercise.
So we're good on item 3C.
Yeah. let me just
Do
get
we
it
want to
printed.
make a motion to approve that tentative agreement?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and I'll second as well on that. So all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, it passes unanimously. Are there any other items that y'all would like to consider at this time? I mean, obviously, we need to do that subcommittee for the item 3A, and we'll get that scheduled. Is there anything else?
For a timeline for y'all to get this to council and get your two votes and stuff, do we need to have a meeting sooner than September? Because I think the next meeting y'all gave us was September
9th, I believe.
9th.
We don't need 2 readings to ratify the agreement. And if we're staying within the budgeted amounts, do we need to? Yeah, last time we had to do 2 readings because we were adding money to the budget. This
Okay.
time we're staying
I
within
think
your budgeted
we're good
amount.
with September 9th.
Okay.
But we do need to like finalize. One thing that Christine and I talked about regarding the changes that we're talking about is that we're concerned, we don't want to rush those because there could be so many things that go awry if we get that wrong. So it might be something that in the end, after we meet and discuss it, we might meet and figure it's all fine, that we kick that can down the road and either reopen halfway through and change it, or we wait until next agreement.
We definitely were aware of that because we're going into new territory for this city.
Yeah.
And we have not got to see how Abilene is doing it, but we decided that this way, hopefully, we can work something out, would be cheaper than having proctored testing centers and stuff, because
Yeah.
I don't think we want to open that door with,
So we might end up talking about it and deciding we're not going to put it in this agreement anyway. But
it's
we at least
possible,
have,
yes.
yeah.
Teresa, I think there would be maybe a change to the budget ordinance because of the ad pace
Can we do that after October
as an
1?
amendment.
Yeah,
We could,
okay.
okay.
Yeah, so we can bring that back after.
Could we change it on second reading or,
We could do a first reading, the first meeting, the second meeting in September, and then a second reading, the first meeting in October.
She said on the current one, can we change it in the second?
can we change our second
We won't
reading of
have
the
a
ordinance?
ratified,
Okay,
oh wait, we will have a ratified agreement by then, right? No, because we're going to have a first meeting.
I
where you're
think
gonna
that
have the
speaks
same-
to the timing question he had, so I just wanted to make
Right.
sure that we could,
No, we could do the first reading. No, let's talk about it. I don't think so.
okay,
I mean, because
If we
we'll be
have a solution,
ratifying
then-
something that the agreement has not been executed yet.
right.
So I don't think we want to get in that territory. How would we pay on the 15th?
On October.
Yeah, I see what she's saying. If it's not in the budget,
If it's not in the
it's
original
not in the-
budget
Let me
ordinance,
bring up my calendar.
then
that
have it,
restricts our ability to pay those ad pays.
yeah.
So we have meetings on the 3rd and the 17th, are our next 2 council meetings. And then the next council meeting will be on October 1st. So,
As long as we could have it at second reading on
second
the
reading on
1st, we'd be
October
good.
1st, we could do it, yeah. The
It's
calendar
tight.
fell just right.
It's tight, but it
Thank
can
you,
happen.
calendar gods.
Can we alter the budget language to include a generic statement that,
We could do first reading of a
that,
budget amendment of a budget we just approved on September 3rd, and then second reading on the 17th.
They would love that. That would be interesting.
Yeah,
language
could
that,
we could do that.
We could do a first reading.
Michael, do you have another idea, Michael, for, no?
We could do a first reading at the same time, and then it would be ratified by the time of the second one, so I
Yeah.
think that's fine. There's
So we could do a
couple-
first
there's
reading
couple
ahead of
different
time
ways
because
to
it's
do
not
it.
in effect yet. And then if the agreement falls apart somewhere between the 9th and the 17th, then we just don't do a second reading on that budget amendment, adding that.
Okay.
Is that okay with you?
Like-
I know, it's a lot of moving parts.
Um, Tell them that Teresa.
You
said
do,
it
we
was
can
a good
actually
idea.
do both readings in October because of the pay cycle and where the meetings fall. So we should be good.
So
as
you would
long-
rather wait till the new budget year to amend that year's budget?
We can.
Okay.
We have some time. is
We
that- I
have some
think so what she-
opportunities.
What she's saying, because of the way the pay is.
Do you want to explain, I don't know if we explained to them
arrears.
the arrears payments that we're doing now on pay and how that's going to affect when they see the change in their salaries or the checks?
Right, so salary increases will be reflected on the October 31st paycheck.
Because now it's in arrears, and there will be a catch-up paycheck at the end, as, you know, of your time here, where there used to not be, so. Does that make sense?
So hours worked the 1st through the 15th will be reflected on the 31st paycheck.
As opposed to on the 15th or 16th.
Yeah, yeah, which just makes more sense. It'll be less confusing for everyone. Okay, so, are we good then on item 4? Anything else to be discussed? We'll get that subcommittee meeting scheduled. Do we need to?
this printed and brought back down, so.
We've already approved it, so we can sign
You
it.
can
right?
sign it, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we can,
I prefer to get it signed today, so everything can be sent out.
That's good. We're here now, so.
do we want to set a time on the subcommittee meeting? Do we need to do that in open session?
No, we don't have to do that in open session.
Yeah, but I'm open anytime. Because that may be, like she said, more complex than we know.
Okay.
So.
But we can adjourn this meeting all in.
Okay, that's what I was going at. Okay, so then I'm going to, do we need to take a motion, or can I just adjourn? You can take a motion. All right, I'd like to take a
I'll make
motion
a
for
motion.
adjournment. Okay, all right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned at 11:46.